Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Boy, howdy, isn't that Jagmeet Singh one tough customer? He's a real fighter. Or at least I've been credibly informed by Jagmeet Singh himself and the NDP, because in every post about Jagmeet Singh that they have made over the past week, they will not stop using the words fight, fighting, and fighter. Jagmeet Singh goes on to this hour's 22 minutes to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because he's super tough and he can take on Donald Trump or whatever. It's really embarrassing to a laughable extent. And I want to go over some of these silly posts with you today because to me, I am just so interested in how badly the NDP is doing right now, despite the fact, like I've said so many times, the Liberals are bleeding out on the floor, and it should be very easy for the NDP to increase its support levels. And it has literally not only not gained any of the Liberal support, they have been losing support in some of the new polls. It's hilarious. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet a subscriber. About 70% of people watching any of my videos usually aren't subscribers. So make sure you do that. Really helps the channel out, helps the videos go further. But without further ado, here is Jagmeet Singh talking about Trump's tariff threats and what he would do if he was prime minister.
Donald Trump is acting more like an internet troll than a president of the United States. I don't think that's the way you act as a president, and it's certainly not the way you interact with other countries. But as I mentioned, I've dealt with bullies throughout my life, and I know what it's like. Even if you're the smaller guy, even if you're outnumbered, you got to make it not worth the bully's while. Bullies only understand strength.
Yeah, and we have the king of strength right here wearing his very nice waffle knit sweater and messing up his lines in a minute and 10-second video.
They only understand strength and pain. So you have to make sure you're standing up and showing that if you want to take that decision to fight with us, to pick a fight with us, it's going to hurt you too. And so I want to issue a challenge actually on your show today. For anyone that's running for prime minister, I've committed that Canada would respond with retaliatory tariffs if
No, it's so stupid. Here, he's trying to do this whole, when a bully comes up to you on the schoolyard and they want to fight you, doesn't matter if they're bigger, you fight them back and you make it not worth their while. The US has 10 times the size of an economy that Canada has. They will win any trade war. We are already crippled because of the terrible policies that Trudeau and the NDP have passed, as well as other bad policies on the provincial level. No, we don't need to fight back. If anything, Danielle Smith did the right thing in going down to Mar-a-Lago and being friendly to Trump, because Trump doesn't tend to strike back at people that he likes. And so if you make him like you, he's not going to do anything, especially if you're actually securing the border like he wanted Canada to do. And Polyev and Danielle Smith haven't even been weak on that front. They're not just doing what Trump said. They are tightening up on the border and saying the Americans better do it on their side of the border too, because we don't want illegal guns coming into the country. And guess what? The Trump administration officials, when they've heard this stuff, said, fair enough. And the world spins on. But Jagmeet Singh, because he's a tough guy, wants to make this all about how he's willing to fight Donald Trump. He wants to fight. And when you're in a fight, you got to fight. You got to keep fighting when you're fighting, and he will not stop using the word fight. As we go on to these new videos, it gets like gratuitous how often they use the word fight, both him verbally as well as in the headers.
If Trump imposes tariffs on Canada, we should respond with tariffs. That's how you respond to a bully. You got to respond with strength. So my challenge is for anyone else out there who's running to become prime minister, I want you to also commit so that Donald Trump knows that anyone in Canada who gets that position will respond with a tariff, with tariffs in kind, fighting fire with fire, showing that we're ready to stand up to a bully.
Does Jagmeet Singh support reducing interprovincial trade barriers and tariffs? Does he want to do that? He's never talked about it. Suddenly, he actually cares about trying to equalize, trade policies on either side of the U.S.-Canada border. But does he care what the trade barriers between BC and Alberta are, or Ontario and Quebec? Nah, because there's no real big flashy policy win or election win in that. He doesn't get to increase support by going after interprovincial trade barriers because it's a boring issue. He wants to sit here pretending like he's going to be the next prime minister of Canada. Like, the funny thing is he tends to verbally avoid saying he's going to be the next prime minister of Canada, but he always makes it clear, I'm running to be the prime minister of Canada. Anyone else who's running to be PM should be doing these things. And it's like, dude, you're like the worst of all three of the leaders in terms of charisma. Even Trudeau is still a better leader than Jagmeet Singh. Here is, again, one of his posts, and it says, fight back, join the movement, volunteer with us because they need as much free labor as they can possibly get because they are broke. And he says, Pure Poly and the Conservatives want to cut services. Together, we can fight back. Yes, fighting, fighter, fight. Jagmeet Singh is a tough guy, a fighter, if you will. It's bad. Here's this like header before we get into the video. Again, like this is the most consultant-driven marketing campaign I've ever seen. Consultants are not real people. They might be aliens. I'm not sure what planet they're from. Consultants think that if we just keep saying a word enough, kind of like, Joseph Goebbels saying that if you repeat a lie enough, eventually people will believe it. But consultants will just tell you that, like, well, just say fighting. We need people to think that we're fighters, so just keep saying these words over and over and over again. And it's like, no, at some point people have to believe it. Do you think that Polyev ever has to say, I'm a fighter? No, because people believe it because he does it. He fights with Justin Trudeau. He bests Justin Trudeau. He's tough. His way of speaking is tougher and more strident. Jagmeet Singh always sounds like he's asking you permission every time he's doing something, other than in this current, LARP where he's going to act like he's some gladiator, which he's just decisively not. I guess he can roll around the floor in a jiu-jitsu gym, but that doesn't mean that he's going to actually be a tough politician. He's, in fact, extremely weak. I just had that guy, Julian Newman, on the show, who was a former staffer for Tom Mulcair and Jack Layton, and he's been going around basically getting information from NDP insiders and being their go-between, and he's saying that all of the people inside the NDP think Jagmeet Singh's a sensitive, petty clown, that he's weak, he doesn't stand up to Trudeau, and every time Jagmeet Singh tries to act tough, it's embarrassing to the party. Anyways, but here we go with this next post. He says, you know who your friends are when you're in a fight. I've had to fight every day of my life. That's why I can promise that the New Democrats will always stand with working people to help fight for better wages, to build homes you can afford, to strengthen and protect healthcare, and blah, 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 blah. Probably saying about trade, and probably the word fighting 5,000 more times.
You know who your friend is when you're in a fight. Now, that's when you really know if someone's your...
Well, Canadians have been in a fight with Justin Trudeau for a few years now, and we haven't really seen Jagmeet on the front lines. He's too busy polishing his Rolex watch and coming up with reasons why we shouldn't have an election.
You're squaring up, and you look to your side, and you see who's standing with you and who's not. Well,
dude, Jagmeet Singh is actually notorious for not showing up to union strikes. Now, I oppose union strikes because most of the time it is basically just holding a business or a public corporation hostage for better wages. And I think it's now turning, the tide's turning, where a lot of Canadians are tired of this stuff. More Canadians side with Canada Post in that strike than with the workers, even though the Canadian default is just to assume the workers are in the right. But I've heard from working class people, Jagmeet is notorious for not showing up to union strikes unless it's like some public sector, more white collar HR type union. He will never show up to like the Boilermakers or the Teamsters or whatever. He doesn't like people who work grimy jobs.
Well, we saw some fights this year. We saw the rail workers in a fight. We saw the port workers in a fight.
Right.
Where's Pierre Poilievre? I didn't hear a squeak out of that guy.
He's not.
He didn't show up. You're never going to see Pierre Poilievre or any conservative standing in the picket lines with working people.
Because it's like socialist labor organization. I know there are some unions that are perfectly fine. I give you that. But a lot of unions, especially public sector unions, are basically just holding taxpayers hostage to increase wages to an absurd degree that people in the private sector cannot get. And this isn't, and I have people sometimes respond, well, that means everyone should join a union. Yeah, then money will leave. How do you think that Argentina turned into what it did and needed Javier Milei to dig them out of a hole? Everyone was in unionized labor, which meant that a lot of people were also unemployed because they couldn't afford to employ that many people at high wages. But eventually, everyone's wages were so high that they had to inflate the currency just to pay people, and everything spiraled down to into a hole. But like, I don't see him at picket lines. Well, we barely see you. And also, guess what? Oftentimes the unions are wrong. Flat out. Oftentimes they are not correct. in what the problems are, because they always want to raise taxes. They always want to vote for money to go to themselves, when really, if we lowered taxes, everyone would be better off, rather than just skimping, rather than just screwing over taxpayers to keep paying workers who are less efficient year after year to do less and less work. It's crazy. Like, again, the Canada Post workers, we're looking for like a 15% wage increase over a couple of years. And they also want transgender surgeries for some reason, because their union bosses are leftist hacks.
But anytime there's a fight, and you've got the bosses on one side and you got the workers on another, New Democrats will always be on the side of working people. Always.
He's so pedantic. He's so tiring. Everything about Jagmeet Singh feels like sweaty sanctimoniousness. Here is him using some other battle language here. We have Jagmeet Singh reacting to Danielle Smith and Kevin O'Leary standing with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And he says, "Nothing to see here, Canada. Just Canadian conservatives celebrating with Donald Trump and billionaires days after they threatened to annex Canada, and just days before they launch a full-scale assault on the Canadian economy, jobs, and your family." Yeah, Danielle Smith actually doing the work to avoid tariffs, which I don't think there was a big threat of them happening in the first place. But Smith doing the work to avoid the tariffs is now assisting in an assault on Canada, rather than Jagmeet, who him and his moronic friend David Eby, who want to exacerbate the fight because they want to then basically put out retaliatory tariffs, rather than doing the bare basics of trying to prevent fentanyl from going over the border and making sure that people on the terror watch list don't walk over our border, which 10 times the amount of people on the terror watch list enter the US from Canada than they do from the Mexican border. It's nuts. And so here's another video. Again, here's Jagmeet Singh trying to stand up to Donald Trump. He's willing to fight him. I'm not sure if you've heard that word before in this video, but he wants to fight. Jagmeet Singh says, "I have a message for Donald Trump. We're good neighbors, but if you pick a fight with Canada, there will be a price to pay."
I have a message for Donald Trump. Our country's not for sale. Not now, not ever. I lived across this country, and I can tell you, Canadians are a proud people. We're proud of our country, and we're ready to fight like hell to defend it. Right now, with the forest fires ravaging homes, Canadian firefighters showed up. That's who we are. We show up and support our neighbors. But if Donald Trump thinks,
By the way, Americans help whenever there's fires in Alberta that are caused by Stephen Guilbeault doing zero forest management. That's the same problem in California.
think you can pick a fight with us, there'll be a price to pay. I've committed that if Donald Trump imposes tariffs on us, we should respond with retaliatory tariffs in kind. I think that anyone running as prime minister should do the same.
What's with like the weird like camera tracking of his head here? It's horrible. It's awful. He is running to be the prime minister of TikTok, which apparently is why he recently went back on TikTok. He is looking to be the prime minister of TikTok. Like, I was shocked that at the end of that video, he didn't just decide to have another 30 seconds where he kept saying synonyms for fighting, because he really wants that SEO, the search engine optimization, to hit, where whenever you look up fighter, he wants his picture to show up first. Jagmeet Singh is a weakling. That is why we do not have a new election yet. It is because he is waiting until, I don't know, the NDP can build up a bigger pool of cash to fight with. I've heard that, yes, it actually is true. He valued his pension, which is pathetic because he's already independently wealthy. He's also scared of his own caucus members who all want their pensions in October as well, when NDP members are even saying, guys, just hold the election. We're burning all of our credibility. Because money is valuable in politics. Obviously, you can't get lawn signs, you can't run advertisements without money. But no, what's more valuable than money is credibility. And also, it's kind of a bit of a circular thing. When you don't have credibility, it's hard to raise money. And Jagmeet Singh has spent all of his credibility in his first two election losses, and now he's approaching a new election with literally half of his certain supporters, people who are certain to be voting NDP in this next election. Half of them, actually more than half, because if you remove the people who don't know or didn't have an opinion, it's the majority of current NDP supporters who think that he is the wrong leader to be leading the NDP into the next election. But the thing is that the NDP is not going to try and actually fight back and do the work to gain credibility, oppose Trudeau where it actually mattered. No, they're always finding an excuse to make it all about the Conservatives. They attack the Conservatives almost more than the PPC attacks Conservatives. It's wild. And I want to end off on this because it's not really worth making a whole video for. I get annoyed with PPC people who cannot find a real reason to dislike Pierre Poilievre. You can find a reason to dislike Poilievre. Fine. You can say, well, I don't like that he's not strong on life issues. I'm pro-life. Pierre Poilievre is not very pro-life. No, that's a deficit in my mind. I hope that he does deeper cuts when he gets into government than I maybe think he will. Although any cuts are good in my book. Like even Danielle Smith has cut nothing and actually grown the budget in Alberta, which is annoying to me, even though she's doing a good job on this border Trump thing. But I can come up with problems with the Poilievre Conservatives. Again, I think they need to tighten up their nomination rules because I got kicked out for no reason because someone was trying to advantage a friend who's an insider in the party. Joke's on them. I made sure that guy still didn't even win after cheating and them trying to rig it. But the PPC will come up with, out of left field, the dumbest reasons to think that Poilievre's bad. Here's this one. I wanted to cover it because a lot of people are sharing stuff like this, and it is nonsensical. A lot of people have shared this exact thing, almost copy and paste, but this Tracy Lynn, True North Strong and Free lady says, out of 886 votes, Pierre Poilievre has voted with Liberals 646 times. Canada has no opposition. It's a hashtag Unip Party. Thanks to whoever did this, for doing her research. I'll show you what that research is. At least PPC supporters know what's going on. The rest of you should try it instead of blindly following like sheep. Okay. Also, stop sideswiping sheep. Sheep are actually oddly smart if you know a lot about sheep. They're also my favorite animal, so I'm going to stand up for their honor. But this is kind of complete nonsense. So we have here the Honorable Pierre Poilievre, Conservative. This is on the Canadian Parliament website. So this is the session that they're taking the votes from, the 44th parliamentary session. And this is the one that just ended that Trudeau prorogued. And so look at this. These are the filters. Votes respecting bills, all votes on bills, any other bills as well, motions and whatnot, everything is included. These are all of the votes that took place in the first session of the 44th Parliament. Now look at this. He voted yes to 646 bills or motions, and he voted against 240 of them. Okay. Do any of you have a prefrontal cortex that understands why this is wrong? You probably only need the base part of your brain to realize why this is wrong. So are all those bills and motions and whatnot Liberal motions? No. Every time a no confidence vote, for instance, was put forward, one of those yay votes would have been Poilievre voting to get rid of the government. That is one of the yay votes that is then dishonestly being counted as a vote with the Liberals. By the way, a lot of these bills are going to be bills from private members that are sensible piece of legislation that just came from random people. They're going to be conservative bills. They're going to be conservative motions. And by the way, this is kind of one of those things where people like to think that, no, I know the real truth about how politics works. I know how politics really works. Do you know how politics really works? Most of it's very boring. That is the best truth you can know about politics. A lot of it is extremely boring. A lot of motions that the Liberals put forward are worth voting for because most of them are pretty routine procedural votes that need to be made just because. And by the way, yeah, Poilievre voted against things 240 times. That probably represents every time he's voted against something that the Bloc or the NDP or the Liberals are doing. But a lot of times, there's going to be a vote to increase a regional police budget. There is going to be a vote to do some random thing on increasing the forest management budget after the fires. They might do something like that. And if Poilievre votes for that, is he doing a bad job at opposing the Liberals? Or is he saving his fire to actually, to quote Jagmeet Singh, the coiner of the term fight, but he will fight when it makes sense to fight. He's not just going to naysay the Liberals. And I think it really says something about the PPC that they expect that an opposition would be voting like a nay 100% of the time. They would just be saying, no, no, you guys, the liberals put it forward. So no, no, no. The liberals are wanting to increase the rural police budget, the rural police fund. No, no, I don't want to do that because Trudeau proposed it. Guys, have a real point. And this is stuff that Maxime Bernier will share. Maxime Bernier isn't this stupid because he would have voted this way in Parliament as well because he was part of the Conservative Party, and there would have been things that Paul Martin was doing or Stephen Harper's opposition was even doing that Harper would have voted for himself because that's a fine bill. There is currently a bill on human trafficking that Arnold Viersen is working on with Liberal MPs. Is it a bad bill? No, it in fact is fantastic. It's very good for cracking down on exploitation online. Very, very good. But we have like people who would see that as, oh my goodness, look, the Conservatives are voting with the Liberals. Yes, on something fine. What? Most of the things in government day to day are boring and standard. Even if we made a 30% cut to the government budget, even if we cleaned up all the woke programs, which I 100% would want to do, if we did a lot of stuff, 50% at least of the things that a liberal government is going to do is what a conservative government is going to do, and by the way, is what a PPC government is going to do, because it's all standard stuff. It's like managing a household. At some point, you got to pay the water bill, you got to pay the power bill, and all this stuff. It doesn't mean that you're like that. You're like your terrible neighbor. It just means that there are things that every government does to make sure the lights stay on. You know, passing little top ups to funds here and there, putting forward a standard motion on like trying to increase sentencing for certain crimes. It makes sense. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. Remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.